This is Clayton Howe's Entertainment X. We're back. I'm Clayton Howe, and today with me on the phone is Morgan James. Morgan, thank you for chatting with me today.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
This is exciting. I've listened to you sing many a time. I love your voice. It's soulful and so rich and so full of life. And I want to get to the bottom of that, where that comes from for you.
Wow, thank you.
I want to jump, though, back to the beginning of time for Morgan. What were your entertainment dreams growing up?
My entertainment dreams, my gosh. Well, you know, I started out, I think one of my first dreams was really to be on Broadway.
Okay.
I mean, my first dream was to be a veterinarian and work at the San Diego Zoo, and those dreams were dashed by my grades. But I found singing and theater, and my dad was my drama teacher, and he was a drama teacher in high schools, you know, when I was a little kid, and so I saw him working with casts, and he and my mom introduced me to musical theater, and so that was one of my earliest dreams. I thought that I wanted to do musical theater, and that stayed with me for a long, long time, you know. And then of course your dreams evolve. I wanted to, you know, I started to make dreams that were closer together, right? I wanted to go to Juilliard. That was a big dream, and I wanted to, you know, so you have to back it up. The big giant dream, there has to be all these dreams that lead up to it.
Set the play here for me. Growing up, how much was music an influence in the home? Was a rather musical family? Your dad was your drama teacher. Was theater something that everyone in the family was doing?
It was definitely something that my mom and dad both did. And so neither of them are musical. They love good music, but neither of them are musical. And they both have great voices, but, you know, nobody played instruments or anything like that. So I think the music side was really something, I don't know where I got it, frankly. But they were both actors, and they were both incredibly well read, both instructors, both loved great music, loved great books. So I was given a lot of great ingredients, you know, and they kind of instilled in me that something that I always tell students, which is you are what you eat, you know. Whatever books and music and literature and good food you put in your body, you become that. You really do, you know. So they kind of started that trend for me.
What were some of the lessons that your parents taught you about work ethic?
Well, you know, I was a really, really ambitious, motivated kid. I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg, you know,
Sure.
Because my mom was really strict and pushed me to and nurtured or developed or something, developed my competitive nature, or it was there and she just coaxed it along. And so being the best and getting the best grades and doing the best was kind of instilled from the beginning. Yeah. And they always told me when I said I wanted to go to New York, they said, it's going to be really hard. There's going to be a lot of rejection. You're going to have to work harder than everybody. There's going to be a ton of people just like you. You're not special in a good way, you know, and you have to stay humble because nobody wants to work with somebody that's not humble and kind. And you have to, you know, put in the time, and you can't take anything for granted. And I mean, work ethic was so instilled in our household. Yeah. You know, my dad can build anything. He can fix anything. You never hire somebody, you do it yourself, you know, and anything they don't know or didn't know, they would learn how to do it. They would read about it. And, you know, getting good grades was of utmost importance, not just because it's good to get good grades, but they said, you know, we don't have a lot of money. If you want to go to a good school, you have to get the best grades. You have to get a scholarship. You know, they were teachers. So it was instilled in me so early on to have good things happen. You have to be totally prepared and work harder than anybody, and you still might not make it. So it was I wasn't surprised when I got to New York and it was very hard. I think I had been prepared for that.
What were those early days in New York? What was the self-talk you had to keep yourself going? You were prepared, you knew there'd be rejection, you know, but to come up against, you know, actually stepping into it, what was that for you?
Well, I was sheltered by school for a little while.
Right.
I was in Juilliard for 4 years. It was its own little microcosm of New York City. It was it had its own clicks and rises and falls and rejection right there in the walls. So I kind of dealt with that first. I dealt with the fact that I did not fit in there, did not really like it there, but then I was committed to going there. I didn't want to admit that I didn't like it. I definitely did not want to pursue opera after going to Juilliard.
Well, that's interesting. Why didn't you want to admit it?
Because everybody fought so hard for me to go there, and I talked nothing but Juilliard for years leading up to it, and I didn't want to admit that it wasn't the magical place I thought it was going to be. And everyone had just done so much to help me get there that I felt like I would sound so ungrateful if I said, it's not really as good as I thought,
Right.
And it was a very hard place to be. That was harder than I expected.
Yeah.
It was socially harder than I expected. And it was, I don't know. It's not a very socially conducive place. It's not a college experience,
Yeah. It's a little, it was I'm imagining competition,
It's not even that. You're not really competing with one another. I mean, everybody always says, "Oh, it's a cutthroat competition." No, you're not competing with one another because there's only 5 of you, and they're all different voice types.
Right.
There's 5 people in my class,
Right, right.
So you're not competing with one another. You're competing with the best version of yourself, and they tell you on day one, like, the best version of yourself is probably not going to make it.
Oh my God.
You're always only competing with yourself.
Right.
The sooner people learn that, the happier they'll be in life.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a really great point. Setting these goals for yourself to, go to Juilliard, want to be on Broadway. Were these written down things for you, or you had them in the mind, you did it, Juilliard was there, you're going to complete it because you wanted it. Now Broadway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Basically, I had lots of goals before that. I'm going to, do this in speech and debate, and do this in choir,
Sure.
and do this in drama, and I was a total overachiever, crazy. I love a project, I love a goal, I love a list. Mm-hmm. I've always been like that. And when I was in New York, and then I pretty much immediately it was, okay, how can I get on Broadway? Now that proved to take a lot longer and be a lot harder than I expected. And it had so many more elements that I didn't know about. Mm-hmm. And Juilliard did not prepare me for them because, of course, Juilliard doesn't help you get an agent or help you make a book or care if you have any acting or dance training. I mean, that you're not there for
Right.
that. And, pretty early on, they kind of saw that my mind was wandering and I wanted to, do that. A few people nurtured that, and a few people really helped me, but the institution as a whole is not there to help you get on Broadway.
Right.
Like the Michigans or the Cincinnatis or any of these other kind of conservatory places.
Of course. And tell me if I'm wrong, I don't actually know. They don't want you to audition while you're studying? You held off on auditioning until after graduating?
Yeah, you have to choose,
Yeah.
which I think is smart. I don't think you should be auditioning and leaving. You either choose to go to school and you commit to that. If you have one foot out the door the whole time, you're not going to get good training. Mm-hmm. So no, I did not dabble. I didn't look elsewhere. I did shows and stuff in the summers, but I wasn't tempted to leave. I wasn't going to go all that way and then not graduate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so if you're willing to kind of piece this together for me, after graduating college and auditioning, I know, and I have it written down here that you were a part of Primrose, The Chocolate Soldier, Pirates, those 2 off-Broadways, then Paper Mill, and then Godspell was the Broadway debut?
No.
Okay, great.
No.
The internet. We love the internet.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I did lots of regional theater,
Sure.
lots of readings. I did lots of new works at NYU, and I did, I did summer stock in the summer. That's how I got my equity card. So I did shows every summer and got my equity card the old-fashioned way.
Right.
And I was lucky to get an agent right out of college, so they were submitting me for regional stuff. I couldn't even get in for. I couldn't even get an appointment for a Broadway show for years.
Mm.
For years, because the catch-22 is you can't get a Broadway show until you have one, and
Yes.
so how do you get a Broadway show with no Broadway credits?
Right.
And, so I started just committing myself to, I'm just going to learn how to be a leading lady out of town. I'm just going to try to get bigger roles out of town. And that's what I got my first kind of big lead at like Two River Theater Company in New Jersey. And then I got a big lead at like Arizona Theater Company and KC Rep and started learning how to do that, And I kind of saw the writing on the wall that to be involved, to get a Broadway show, you really need to be involved from the beginning. And that's still the truth. So I decided how can I meet music directors, composers, lyricists? How can I be involved with something from the ground up? And I started meeting amazing people at NYU doing readings of new works at the musical theater writing program. And since I can read music and sight sing pretty well, I was an asset there, and I met so many incredible people there. And ultimately I met Mary Mitchell Campbell at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Conference doing a new work that never went anywhere but was fun.
Sure.
And she and I became friends, and then when they were doing a reading of the Addams Family, she said, we should have Morgan come along. So I was involved with Addams Family from the very first workshop. Yeah. I was involved with Wonderland from the workshop phase. I met Frank through some friends. It's all like who you know. It's not going in. I never booked anything from going into an audition. Yeah. I'm a terrible auditioner. I have to audition, but I get jobs because somebody hears me sing or already knows me. Right. And then I was involved with, Motown from the workshop phase. And I was involved in, Godspell from the earliest incarnation. I wasn't in it at Paper Mill, but I was in it after that.
Sure.
So yeah, I did Addams Family, and then I did Wonderland, then I did Godspell, then I did Motown.
What are your views on these relationships? I know you just touched on it a little bit, but professional relationships in the industry, how do you view all of that? It seems like it's been so helpful.
Oh, it's everybody who makes it in any way there is no one that gets jobs that doesn't have personal relationships where they're working. Right. Or where they're about to work. That's how people get jobs. Those are the people. That's what you don't learn until you are deep in the business. Right. I really thought I'm just going to walk into an audition and sing great, and then I'll just get a job. I mean, I was so naive. And it doesn't matter what picture you have. It doesn't matter your resume. It doesn't matter what's in your book. I just started taking things out of my book. My book has 3 things in it. I used to think that, the way we're taught to look at the business is very different. What really matters is, are you fun? Do people like you? Do you work hard? Do you put your nose to the grindstone? Right. Are you a quick learn? Are you a good musician? Are you a team player? Are you humble? And yeah, if you have extraordinary skills on top of that, then great. But the personal relationships matter so much.
Yeah, they really do.
And not in making connections, because I'm not like a schmoozer. I'm not a partier. I'm never out on the scene.
Sure.
It's not that. It's more, really, the word connection, really connecting with people. Yeah. And so that when they're making something, they think of you and they want you to be a part of it. Right. And it takes years and years and years to develop those kinds of friendships that matter.
Yeah. Well, when was the when were you making this transition into the singing career, to go from, was it like a certain amount of Broadway shows and then you were like, okay, I'm moving on now? Like, what was that gear shift for you, so to speak?
Well, it's always just it's always a work in progress. Sure. It's never that clear.
Yeah.
Oh my God, if everyone's career was like shifting gears in a car, it's like, and then I decided to do this. Nothing. I didn't decide to do any of it. I just necessity is the mother of invention for almost everything in my career. And in Addams Family, my first Broadway show, I started to get really. I had some money then, or more than I'd had bartending before that, and I had time. I was in town. I wasn't going hither and there. And so I decided to start a band. So I started a band, and I did a show at Le Poisson Rouge. And I didn't know what I was doing. It was a total weird hodgepodge show. But people came to it, and they were like, yeah, do more of that. We don't know what it is. So I decided to dabble and start to dip my toe in writing music. I was really scared of it. I kept changing my band, kept kind of playing with the sound, kept doing shows, and then I decided I wanted to try to make an album or get a record deal. This is my next goal in my mind. So my manager, Ted, who'd been with me for years and years and years, we decided I needed a music manager. Tried to find one, worked with somebody for a little while. It didn't pan out. Then you start over. You get a different music manager. Then I auditioned for every label in the city. They all rejected me. I flew out to LA. I did a bunch of fabulous meetings. I got rejected. And ultimately got signed by one of the same labels that rejected me. Because sometimes you knock on a different door on the same building and somebody answers.
Yeah.
It's really crazy, So I got, that was a long process to get signed. And it basically was, 5 years of making music and meeting people and figuring out what my sound was before I met Doug Morris at Sony. I met him during Motown because he was one of the producers of Motown.
Fantastic.
And Berry Gordy Jr., the founder of Motown, was a huge champion of mine. And he basically got me a record deal.
Yeah.
So we had been pounding on doors, and ultimately it takes the connection of one person who believes in you. All the work I had done and, beating down the doors and taking the meetings and sending out the demos, it didn't matter ultimately, because what mattered was Mr. Gordy believed in me and made one phone call. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's that simple, know? But you have to do the work along the way. You can't wait for someone to do it for you, obviously.
Yeah, you have to be prepared, right, for that opportunity.
Of course, you have to be prepared.
Do you feel like life happens for you or to you, and that things come at a certain time for a certain reason?
I definitely feel like things happen at a certain time for a reason, and I really try to believe in the adage that nothing that is meant for you will pass you by. Yeah. It's hard sometimes because sometimes you really get your heart set on something and then it passes you by, and it's hard not to take it personally. It's hard not to feel like things are passing you by in this business. But usually things happen in the time they're supposed to happen.
Yeah. Do you have any mentors and some standout lessons from your mentors?
I mean, Mr. Gordy is probably the biggest, most important, most influential mentor I've ever had. He's a legend, and he's incredibly kind. I met him later in life, of course. I met him in this, in his later years, where he's very reflective and very affectionate and very nostalgic.
Yeah.
I didn't know him when he was like cutthroat making Motown, Sure. He really encouraged me to write music. He really encouraged me to nobody works harder than that man. He is relentless.
Yeah.
He reminds me that, one time he said to me, you have to remember that a star is a star even when it's not nighttime yet. So somebody may look up in the daytime and not see a star, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And you are a star whether anybody knows it yet or not. And I cling to that, when I feel doubt.
Yeah. Where was that conversation? How did he have time to talk to you? Like, what was the?
He took me under his wing. Yeah. Every time I'm in LA, I go to his incredible home for many hours where, I clear the day, and as long as he wants to talk to me, every time he's in New York, I clear the day. And we had many, many, many personal and professional conversations during Motown and beyond, so we met in 2011. Mm-hmm. And he's just a very special man, and I'm lucky that it was a cast of superstars. Yeah. Certainly could have taken anybody under his wing. And so I feel very lucky.
Yeah. And without harping on it for too long, but I do find this to be incredibly fascinating. What do you think it was about you that drew him to you? Is something you can
describe? I don't know. I think I think I look like Doris Day and sound like Tina Marie, which is what it said on the audition notice, you
Fantastic.
know? And I walked in and I thought to myself, if I don't get this job, like, I just need to quit the business. Because, you know, sometimes things are really like, this is me.
Yeah.
So I walked in and I said, this is me.
Yeah.
I told them that, you know, and they laughed. They all laughed. And I really like had this confidence of like, you're not going to find somebody that does this better than I do. You know, there was kind of that brazen thing. I think he really thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And the second he met me, he was like, he always just used to say, that's my star. That's my star. Yeah. And I wasn't a star in the show. I had the tiniest role in Motown. But it doesn't, by gosh, talk about the lesson of the size of your role doesn't matter, because that was the most influential show I've ever done in my life, and I was on stage for maybe a minute.
You've been listening to Entertainment X, the podcast. You can follow Entertainment X on Instagram at _EntertainmentX_. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join Clay next week for another curiosity conversation on Entertainment X. Thank you for listening.